I'd like to ask unanimous consent that I be able to control the time, or does Ms. Lowy, I guess there's a parliamentary procedure. Does Ms. Lowy have to request that, or can I request that?
The gentleman is recognized.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I will yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here we go again. Each day, the gaping wound that the government shutdown represents grows bigger, and the House Republican response continues to be these little Band-Aids. Of course, we on the Democratic side want to see all Native American programs funded. The other side knows that. And in fact, this has been one area where we have achieved bipartisan agreement. Both Chairman Simpson, and I want to particularly mention Mr. Cole on our subcommittee, myself, Ms. McCollum, all of us have tried to put as much money as possible, given very severe fiscal constraints, into Native American programs. But this bill that's on the floor today, in fact, doesn't serve its stated purpose. We're going to hear from House Republicans what this latest Band-Aid temporarily funds. But here are just some of the Native American programs and offices that are not funded by this resolution. Native American education programs that are funded by the Department of Education. Native American law enforcement programs funded by the Department of Justice, including the programs to carry out the Violence Against Women Act. That's an area where we had achieved, finally, bipartisan agreement. This doesn't allow us the funds to carry out that program. Native American social service programs that are funded by the Department.
Gentlewoman is correct. Members will please take their conversations from the floor and clear the well. Gentleman may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but I understand that this is a very trying day for all of the American people, and that our colleagues feel that as well. So I'm happy to speak through the interruption. But I do want to make the point, these Native American social service programs that are so important to the American Indians, particularly on our reservations, are not funded by this bill. Includes the child care and temporary assistance to needy families, because they're funded by the Department of Health and Human Services. Native American housing programs funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. HUD has the highest percentage, almost 100% of its employees that are furloughed. Still, what is this, the 11th day, Mr. Speaker? That was a rhetorical question. Mr. Speaker, while this resolution temporarily funds the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Bureau of Indian Education, it fails to fund the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, which oversees those agencies. So we're not even willing to fund the office that's responsible for managing the programs that we purport to fund today. And what about the Office of the Special Trustee, which administers $3.7 billion in tribal funds and $728 million in individual Indian accounts? That's not funded either. So let's not be deluded that this is going to fix the situation with regard to our Native Americans. And that's why a number of tribes have opposed this way of doing it. They want all the government to open up, because it is their government as well. Mr. Speaker, the underlying basis for the Republican shutdown of the government has been an irrational and intransigent opposition to the Affordable Care Act. That's how it started. House Republicans voted 43 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And at the same time, they were voting to repeal the permanent reauthorization of the Indian Health Care Improvement Act. Every time the other side voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, they were voting to repeal the permanent reauthorization of the Indian Health Care Act, as well as voting to repeal many new programs that are contained in the Affordable Care Act that are designed to assist the Indian Health Service in meeting its mission to raise the health status of Native Americans. These 43 attempts to repeal the Affordable Care Act and the shutting down of government is all the more disheartening because we in the Subcommittee on Interior and Environment have so strongly supported Native American programs. Now, unlike what we have seen in the last week as certain members have marched the floor to claim support for the NIH and Head Start, all of which we strongly support, even as members have pushed sequester and proposed additional cuts to these programs in 2014 on the other side, this subcommittee has the bipartisan commitment to Native American programs. That's something we should be proud of. And this subcommittee, I know, does not want to go about funding Native American programs in this manner. It's a half-hearted, Band-Aid approach. It's wrong. We need to fund all Native American programs. We need to fund all of the federal government. It's long past time for this shutdown to end. So let's release all the federal employees that have been taken hostage. Let's reopen the people's government. I reserve the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman reserves.